But it's a hellish existence. So the Lily story actually, I think, tells the whole story, because the news was given to one of our projects in India, and she was traced to the red light district in Delhi, and she was rescued, but not before the worst had happened. And and it's a huge trauma for a 4-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 3-year-old. The first case I heard was of a 3-year-old child. So, she was rescued, and then there's nowhere to go back to, and they're traumatized, and they're homicidal, they're suicidal, there's huge mental health issues. So, but she was taken into the sheltered home that we support, and we supported at that time, and grew up, was educated. I mean, she's now about 28 years old. So, she's created a life for herself, and she got a college degree also. But about 10 years ago, she was about 18, and I inquired. I said, what does she want to do now that she's 18 and she's got her life ahead of her? And she burst into tears, and she said, I want to teach mothers to love their children, because it was a mother who had sold her, because she was a working woman in the sex trade, and they're all drug addicts and alcohol, because they can't bear this terrible life. They have no friends, they don't have health care, proper food, and all that. So I think we are all part of the human energy, and so are dolphins, and so are whales, and so are all other species. But they function according to the instinct, but we don't, because we are all separate. But these children and everybody is part of the human energy. And until we lift the lowest level, we really can't go up much higher. So it really behooves us to look at them. So that's what I do. We've done about 32 projects in the past 12 years. And I'm in the process of preparing our our report from 2012 to this year. So that's what it is. And it could happen to anyone. So, one thing Buddhism also taught me was interdependence. None of us is separate from the other. And if we don't recognize that, we are interdependent with ourselves, with the environment, with everything else. So, we need to, and William Wilberforce said, I think we all need to do something about it, because William Wilberforce was this Englishman who brought the anti-slavery law, which was about 150 years ago. He said, you may choose to do nothing, but you can never again say you did not know. And once you know, you must do something.
Yes. I feel really moved hearing you talk about that. It makes me very teary, actually. But I'm wondering if, with that in mind, with that interdependence in mind, and supporting everybody, what you would like to see happen through the World Upshift movement, and particularly the Asia Pacific Forum, like what do you think might be possible?
I think in the first place, I would say people are searching now. There's more personal freedom. Religious societies have really broken down. We don't live in religious societies anymore around a gurdwara or a church or a temple. I mean, that's not the focus of life. A lot of migration has taken place, so cultures have got quite mixed. There's a great deal of economic freedom and earning power, and there's a great deal of personal freedom. But at the same time, there is a great sense of, I think, people are a little lost and they're searching. And I think it's very important not to not tell people what to do, but to suggest to them, because I think we don't want to control anybody, but I think we want to make it, suggest to them the grid or the format and for further study and to have an inner life. So I think that can be done by talks, by participating in, tree planting, by, taking care of people around, which is what I try and do through Lily, who are less fortunate because they need a helping hand. So And I'm actually born a Sikh. So, and that's my background. But I'm really studied Buddhism since I was a teenager, and Hinduism and Sufism, and I'm a little bit of a Christian because I spent my life in Catholic convent schools in India, and when they were very overtly Catholic, there was no signs of the broader India in the school because we had the Lord's Prayer and we had scripture lessons and whatnot. So, but I've learned something from everyone. So I'll just share this book, which I wrote on Nagarjuna, who's known as the second Buddha. And from Buddhism, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama has given me a foreword for this. But from Buddhism, interdependence, which actually means there is, you can't actually harm anything else, whether it's your environment or the people around you, because you are part of the same spectrum. And the other thing about Buddhism is there is this, which I think is a great counter to ego, is that there is essentially in us, there is an emptiness. There is no fixed essence in an individual, which is why you can be transformed. Because if that wasn't there, then it's not possible to be transformed if each one had a really fixed essence. So that's what the Buddha also taught. And he said that's why you can move from samsara, the world, to nirvana, enlightenment. So if you remember that everything is flows and in and out, and is part of this whole thing of interdependence. And of course, the Dalai Lama is the embodiment of the bodhisattva of compassion. So he says that if you want to make others happy, be compassionate. You want to be happy, be compassionate. So compassion. And I think young people can be, and I have youth ambassadors in my charity. And just yesterday, one of them got in touch. He was an English schoolboy who raised money for us. He's at Oxford, and he raised money for us during the pandemic. He wanted to participate. He was about 16 or 17 then. And we were handing out food bags, basically all over India through our projects. And including this, because India's got about 7 races. And there was this tribe in the Ooty Hills down south, the Haki Piki tribe. And they ran away into the forest at the beginning of the pandemic. They were there for 3 months, and then they realized it wasn't going to end in a hurry, so they came back. So, with part of his funds, we gave them food bags and all. But, so he just wrote to me yesterday or day before saying now he's at university in America and he wants to do some more. So I wrote back and I asked him, you tell me, what is your passion? Is it education? You want to give a scholarship? You want to do something anti-trafficking? You want to do some skills training, or do you want to support an existing project? So he wrote back to say that, I'm interested in the anti-trafficking aspect. So that's fine. Now we have 2 projects we support on the Bangladesh border and the Nepal border. So I will create a little, I suggest to him how he can participate. But I think it's very important to ask people and give them and nurture them rather than tell them what to do. So, and this is the book I created for my charity, because I thought the charity is about women and children, and really the girl child. And I want to talk about that because that's a very great area of passion and concern for me, women. And so I said, what is the theme of it? And it's mother and child, really. So I asked eminent personalities for letters to their mother, which were written for the book. So, for example, and the proceeds of this have gone to education, because that was my pledge, that whatever we raise. So the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, gave me a letter. And so it's, nice they all participated, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and someone you may or may not recognize because the younger generations don't, Cliff Richard. And
yeah,
I won't show you too many of them, but there's Sherry Blair with her mother. So, and so on and so forth. They're quite, they're eminent personalities and all. And they all wrote, and mother is a very, special subject. But, I think women today also can come into their own, because and I gave a talk on this in London. This was about 15 years ago, because now we are at a different point in our history and our evolutionary history. And I mean, I don't know, I had this, probably this foolish, gung-ho attitude of youth, because I went off to London when I was 21, and my parents, for some reason, let me do it. It was just extraordinary. And I just thought, oh, I can do anything I want. And my mother once asked me, she said, who do you think you are? And actually, it's quite a profound question, which I've been trying to answer ever since. And my mother is no more. She died in 2019. My father died last November. And after a very difficult last 1/3 of their lives, because my dad had a stroke, and he survived for 36 years after that.
Wow.
It was very, very hard on him, very, very hard on my mother and I. And was living in London, they were in Delhi, so managing everything. But I think women today can actually, and I think young women have much more freedom and opportunities. They don't have to fight quite so hard, because we today live in knowledge economies. It's not brute strength. So there's nothing women can't do, short of, you can't box against Muhammad Ali. Now he's no more anyway, or you can't be a sumo wrestler or something like that. But short of that, they can do anything. So I think this little bit of, I think young women also need to be encouraged, because the divine feminine needs to come out more in the energies of the world, and which has always been very strong in India. Not that it.
Can I ask you a question? Because I'm really curious about what you think about how young women can be encouraged to participate in the World Upshift movement.
I think young women need some mentoring, because, again, when I moved to London, I really thought it would be like an extension of Delhi, because, my parents had gone to top tier English schools here, which was all fostered by the British Raj. And I had been to convent schools, and the culture is quite anglicized. And in fact, one of the things that happened during the Raj, which was an imperial policy, was to cut the Indians off from their cultural roots. So Sanskrit schools were smashed and destroyed, and the Upanishads and everything was sort of poo-pooed as superstition. So with the result that about, 10, 15 generations of Indians got, especially the upper crust Indians who were quite anglicized and English speaking and all that, got cut off from the wisdom of the rishis. Now, that didn't happen with monks who kept it going in secret, and housewives in Banaras and all that who carried on with that, but certainly one section of society which became the dominant section. But I think the whole concept of the divine feminine is a very strong and potent concept. Now, when I went to London, I found gradually that it was actually a very different society, despite the superficial similarities. And Indian culture is very different, because the hierarchies are still male, and there's quite a lot of patriarchal notions and control and power and all that. So I think part of the limitations of that young women have, because I was a young Indian woman once, and I know, I felt like I was being watched, and, I felt I was expected to do this, and whatever it is, it controls you. So I think, first of all, they need a bit of mentoring and guidance as to their own mind space. And by the way, my first degree is in psychology honors from Delhi University. So this to recalibrate your own mental outlook and who you are and who you can be. So I think some sort of talks and some sort of sessions, and more specifically about the divine feminine, because that's very potent.
Yeah. So, I'm curious what that looks like for you. For if somebody was listening to this and they haven't heard about the divine feminine before, how would you describe it?
That's a question that I could spend a long time in answering, but very briefly.
In a kind of abbreviated way, then.
Yeah. No, because the concept of the rishis, there is a Brahman who is actually the kind of matrix of consciousness. Now, we define God through our own limitations. And nobody, each human being or any religion or anything has always tried to give this largely anthropomorphic image of the divine. Now, that is a limitation of the human mind. It's not a limitation of the divine. So a very good story that illustrates this is Rumi, the Sufi, the great Mevlana Rumi, who still has a huge influence about 800 years after his lifetime. And by the way, my mother was an Urdu scholar. My mother was very literary, and she worked in 3 languages, in Urdu, Punjabi, and English. She wrote more than 50 plays and poetry, and we collaborated on a play on Mevlana Rumi in the year 2007, because she was also a Farsi, Urdu scholar and knew enough Farsi to bring his writings to, translate some of the ghazals. And we did a play on him, and it was very interesting because it was about his transformation from a cleric into a mystic. And to show that on stage when his guru came to him and the turmoil and what he went through. But so it was performed in Delhi and in London. It was called Unveil the Sun. Rumi Unveil the Sun, because that sun is a reference to his guru Shams, which is sun. But one of his stories is that, there are some people who don't know what an elephant is. So they put an elephant in a dark room and they put these 5 men in there and said, feel the elephant and, come and tell us what's the elephant. So one person felt its trunk. One man felt the trunk of the elephant and he came back and he said, the elephant is a pipe. Another man felt the leg and he said, the elephant is a pillar. Another man felt the tail and said, the elephant is a broom. It's like a broom. Someone else felt the ear and said, the elephant is like a fan. So, each one had a different concept. And I think that illustrates very well what the religions are all about in this world, because somebody has interpreted it in a particular way. But that does not limit the divine. That's a limitation of our minds. And the divine is beyond gender. The divine is beyond description. And I think the Upanishads get it. They are just wonderful texts of wisdom, because it says it's not this, it's not that, it's not that. It's because it's undefinable. So the way, so then you have the Brahman who's kind of on top. Then you have the Trinity, which is the creator and the preserver and the destroyer. That's Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. But you have Purush and Prakriti, because in the world, there is an inert principle and there's a dynamic principle. The dynamic principle is female. So nothing can happen without that dynamic female energy. Because again, Rumi, I think he's incredible, because he said, a woman is not a creature. She is the creator. It's a woman who gives birth. It's a woman who creates, the rest of the world. So, and so the woman in Hinduism, in any case, it's ironic, because, there's been a lot of abuse of women in India. It's undeniable. And, some of them are very obvious examples, but there's a lot of domestic violence and, all that goes on behind closed doors. But in Hinduism, when there is, the gods were fighting some battle, I don't know, some demons, because this fight between good and evil, just goes on and on and on. I mean, it never ends. And they did not succeed. So what did they do? They created a warrior goddess, Durga, and she defeated the demon. It's not the gods. So they called upon this female energy to actually set the world right. And that's one example of that. But another example, and I'll tell you why, because that's linked to my name, is because there was this project. Now, the gods had a project that, there's this nectar of immortality, which is buried deep in the ocean. And they wanted to get it out because they wanted to be immortal. And they couldn't do it alone. So they went to the demons because, they've always been good and evil, good and evil. And they asked for help. So the demons said, okay, but you'll have to share that with us. And so they said, okay, and having no intention of sharing it, because then the demons would be immortal as well. But they churn the ocean. This is a very major story in Hinduism, so churning of the ocean. And they took the mountain, Mount Meru, this mythical mountain, which is like Everest, which was the churning stick. And the churning rope was this divine serpent. So they churned the ocean. Lots of stuff came out of the ocean before the Amrit came out. And one of the things that came out was a very lethal poison. And now they didn't know what to do with it because, you couldn't deal with it. So Lord Shiva, he decided to ingest the poison, but he held it in his throat because he couldn't swallow it. It was too strong even for him. And that's why he's got a blue throat, because the poison is there. But finally, the nectar came out. It's called Amrit. And that was my mother's name. So it's a nectar of immortality. And the gods were lined up on one side and the demons were lined up on one side. Now the gods were in a quandary because they'd said they'd share it and they didn't want to share it. So they again wondered what to do. So Shiva had already done his bit. So Vishnu stepped in. And Vishnu took on the form of a beautiful young woman whose name was Mohini. And what they did, the demons were so enchanted by this creature that they didn't notice that they were being given water instead of the Amrit. So they saved that.
That's a great story. I love that story, the Rumi story as well. I think that really resonates for me in terms of the divine feminine and like my dad was really interested in Greek Orthodoxy, and they have the same thing of whatever it is that you can come up with as God definitely isn't it. So there are these scholars that spend their whole lives thinking up what God could be so that they know that it's not that. Yeah. And I'm conscious of the time, but as a last question, I'd really love to hear from you what it is that you personally would like to bring to the World Upshift movement, or what you personally would really like to see happen.
Well, I'll tell you what I did during the pandemic, because I was actually locked down in Delhi for about 2.5 years. So I've been a journalist and I've done my father was here. So, although he had his attendance, but someone needed to be here and it was me. And so I worked on a couple of books, and one of them is a children's story, which I haven't finished, which has got dragons and snakes in it. But apart from that, I thought I did for 3 years BBC radio work. I had a fortnightly slot on radio, and I've done a lot of journalism and all. So I thought, okay, one of the things I created was online conversations. And I did it with various platforms, with an organization in Calcutta, an organization in Bangalore, and the Nehru Center in London. So some of them were interfaith, and they were really quite weighty, because I had His Holiness Taisuttupa Rinpoche, who's number 3 in the Buddhist hierarchy, and the Yogi Sri M. We had an interfaith talk, which I gave it the title, The Jewel in the Lotus, which is very Buddhist, and on Hinduism and Buddhism. So another one was on Sufism. So again, I got the head of the Inayat Khan order from America. I'm not sure exactly which area he lives in. The head of the Qadiri order, also from America, and Hinduism, and a Sufi, American Sufi in London, and then somebody from Jerusalem. So, that was a dialogue. And again, it was really very meaningful, 1 hour long and 1 hour, 15 minutes at most. So, and conversations with people like Dr. Karan Singh, who is the former Maharaja of Kashmir, and who is a great scholar and a great Shiva Bhakt, but there is so much one can learn. And I think rather than reading a book, because I find that people read less and less people read now. I'm a reader and I like to hold a book in my hand. Now, I think the task of the 21st century, and I've actually said it in this book, but by the way, I'm the global envoy in the UK of the International Buddhist Confederation, but I've said it in this book that the task of the 21st century is really to bring spirit and matter, to manifest spirit in matter. Now, Sri Aurobindo, I don't know if I've got it here, that I can quote it to you, because, he said, spiritual evolution is our greatest need and our true destiny. India could help free a world enthralled by materialism and point the way to a dynamic integration of spirit and matter. So I think that could be done by creating these online platforms for dialogue, which I've been doing and putting together and curating. I think chat groups, yes, to an extent, but I think more than that, listening to people who have, some of them, even the Dalai Lama has written a book which says Beyond Religion. Because in so many ways, Polly, and I think I'm beyond religion, because, I'm part of, I've taken so many things from different religions. From Sikhism, I got the concept, I practice the concept of seva and simran. Seva is service. So you're of service to the world always, and you always share what you have. And simran is just remembrance, remembering God every minute. So, these are, I think if one gives these, for want of a better word, if one calls them mantra, but give little bits and pieces that people can actually practice in their lives. And I don't know, we have to find a way of sharing all that, but I think that's practical.
Yeah, I love the idea of interfaith dialogues that people could hear, listen to, participate in. That sounds amazing. Yeah, so is there anything else that you would like to add at all before we wrap up? Any thoughts about World Upshift or the Asia Pacific Forum?
No, I just think we are in a more inclusive world. We could be, because I think religious boundaries, national boundaries have been blurred. People live all over the world. And I think the young can make a better world with vision and compassion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mohini. Thank you.
Thank you, Pollyanna.
Wow, amazing to hear from just such powerful, eloquent, wise women. And, we all know that there's a shortage of women and female leaders in the world. And so I really embrace and encourage anybody out there that is really carrying a balanced masculine and feminine energy to come and join the Upshift. And talking about powerful women and women that are wise, we've got the wonderful Tammy Scarlett here, the CEO of Unify, which many of you will be watching this live broadcast from today. So welcome, Tammy.
Darwin.
Good morning to you.
Hello, everyone. We are here, of course, in Larici, the World Upshift Forum. And thanks for being here with us today. So far, this program is phenomenal. That interview is so inspirational. And there's so much that's available to be done when we put ourselves in the position where we've tapped into our own power and our own genius zone, and then bring that work out, relate to others, to the world around us, and engage. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So this is really inspiring for me, and I can't wait to see what we have next.
Well, I mean, we've got loads going on, but right now we've one of our partners in Singapore, a gentleman called Fred Zhao. He is the chairman of the IMC group, and he's actually an author. Many of you may have heard him. He had
Hi,
a podcast
everybody.
with Irvin Laszlo, who we should name drop here. So we're going to be hearing a message from Fred. So let's cut to that, and we'll see you after his message.
Hi, everybody. I'm very glad that I'm part of this upshift movement of bringing up conscious awareness of where we're going. You know, the only truth about life is there are changes that we can observe. But now we know that the fundamentals of everything is not material, but actually it is consciousness. And that it is always evolving. So we're always upshifting, even it doesn't sound or seem like it's upshifting, like the material era that we're in. It is part of the evolution process because we're always operated by invisible hand, and it's always moved towards the challenges. So today, we see the challenge is sustainability, and this sustainability is caused by a really great system we created called free market economy, which is democratic, equal, and free. However, it's not driven by enlightened self-interest. It was driven by greed and ignorance. So the good news is the whole world's moving that way. Another fact is everything is moving to integration. So globalization is a trend you cannot stop. So from a little hunting tribe all the way to a little village, country, empires, and so forth. It is always in the process of like energy vibration, but spiraling upward. So that's a good news. And we're always human being enhanced by new technology, new discovery of science, and the latest, of course, is quantum science, where the study of material and matters meet spiritual consciousness and mysticism. So at this very important junction of human evolution, we are going to have a major upshift. And this major upshift is supported by condition to be ready. For example, we are already affluent. If you divide 105 trillion with 8 billion people, we have 12,000 per capita. More than enough. Of course, never enough if you're driven by greed. Problem is redistribution. The problem is we really need to focus on the sustainability of what is creating the well-being and happiness economy paradigm as advocated by United Nations in 2012, moving from GDP to GNH. So in my new book, The One Choice, One World, talked about a different kind of journey of materialism into an inner journey of connecting with ourselves, finding who we are, and knowing and answering the existential questions, which quantum science has answered for us, and go on a journey of self-discovery and knowing and be ourselves and being happy and being in the moment and being well. So indeed, a very exciting era is unfolding right now, enhanced by technology, enhanced by the challenge of sustainability, and really integrating into a new era of globalization. I think that in this era, we will drive economy by a new culture, a new worldview that will unite human beings. When we go on a journey inside and when we can find peace, there can be no projection of war outside. So the journey of finding peace is not regulating outside alone, it's regulating inside so that we can automatically express it outside. And that it cannot happen. So if the energy of the humanity shifted upward, then it will express everything differently. Please get to know more of quantum science and how it relates to your current worldview or your religious subscription, and see if you can get moving on into seeing the world and having a language that we connect better. Here in this movement, which I salute the Laszlo Institute, because we too have Octave Institute that we collaborate, and also pushing this new upshift movement. So I would like to see you more and more, and let's do it together. This is a journey of life that we can do together, because the universe is life, everything is life, and the solution to that is when we awaken, we will find peace. In peace, love and joy is already present. Thank you.
Hear from Fred there. I mean, impact investing, as we know, is such an important part of our evolution. As systems are breaking down, economies clearly need to change, businesses need to redefine themselves. So it's great to have Fred be a partner with us and part of our World Upshift Forum and movement. But what do we got next, Tammy? What's going on?
Fantastic. I know. Well, up next, we actually have Louise Mara. And Louise is the founder of Unity House, and she has released a book called Reroute. She really brings to the world this depth of ancient wisdom and connecting to the earth. And Jarvis, this is really right up your alley, right? This is the work you're all about.
It is, and thank you for recognizing that. I mean, those of you that don't know, I studied with a female shaman indigenous to the UK for 14 years before getting into business. So I came into business with very different principles that most people operate with now. And one of the things that I think human beings have really forgotten is how intelligent and conscious Mother Nature and our planet is, right? Yeah. That's where the true wisdom potentially is. And maybe this is just a playground for us to explore and find those bits of wisdom so that we can evolve. And that's very much about the upshift movement.
I love that. Absolutely. I've been thinking a lot lately about the wisdom of trees, how much wisdom a tree must have from it being rooted in one place all its life.
And that they're all connected through this mycelium network.
The mother networks and grandmother networks and root systems of the tree, they say, there's studies that have been done on this, they say an entire forest can burn down, and that mother tree root network will hold all the information to replenish the forest, every species that was in there. Isn't that phenomenal?
It is amazing.
That's a level of intelligence that we humans don't have yet.
Or maybe before the current systems that are breaking down, the kind of the religious systems, the political systems, the business systems that we're now seeing are not serving us as a species anymore. Maybe it's remembering how we used to be pre these very quite man-made systems that we're living by today. So perhaps it's going back.
Yeah.
To bring it forward into
remembering the wisdom that we have inside and that we're all connected to. Let's intentionally do that together as we listen to our wonderful friend Louise Mara.
Yay.
Hi, I'm Pollyanna, and I'm co-convener of the Asia Pacific Forum as part of World Upshift Movement, and I'm here today with Louise Mara. Hi, Louise.
Hi, Pollyanna.
So Louise is also part of the Asia Pacific Forum. And Louise, it would be wonderful if you could share with everyone where you are in the world and what your work is and how it's relevant to the World Upshift movement.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, kia ora koutou to anyone listening. So yeah, I'm Louise. I live on Waiheke Island in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So it's off the coast of off the coast of Auckland, a small island, but beautiful place to kind of work in this world from. So yeah.
I'm guessing it's pretty wild and
not too wild. Yeah.
Okay.
At times.
I've read quite a lot of books that were set in New Zealand that were kind of nature-based, and they're all these wild, windy kind of.
It's not like the South Island where they're very windswept islands. This one's kind of quite tame in comparison, but beautiful.
And so, would you like to share a little about your work?
Yeah, and yeah, really great to be part of this World Upshift movement, getting things moving, hey, and it's quite hard to kind of delineate my work, but I'll do my best. So I work a lot in systems healing. So how do we really heal and restore systems and kind of restore, in some ways, the fundamental traumas that keep humanity separate from the planet and each other, when of course we are planet. So I work a lot with decolonization. I work across cultures. I work on what does restoration kind of look like, and also restoration of kind of this energy of separation that keeps us a bit stuck. I also work very deeply with nature connection, and I'm part of the Ngāi Tūhoi tribe, Māori tribe in New Zealand, and helping people to kind of sew themselves back into the web of life. Of course, we can't not be in it, but our consciousness to really sew that back into the web of life. So I work a lot with Reroute. I wrote a book and a program of just really helping people co-regulate with nature, get back into feeling like they are part of nature via a relationship with a tree and trees, because trees are built to actually help us to reroute back into the fabric of life. So that's a real passion for mine. And really, we've got to change our systems from connection. We're in a disease of connection, disease of disconnection. So, most of my work is how do we recreate systems, processes, relationships from a connected place, which is why I reroute. Does that all make sense, Liana?
Yes, except that I wanted to pick up on something you said, because you said you help people to co-regulate with nature, and I'm really curious. I'd like to hear more about what that is.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cold term, isn't it? But I work a lot with the nervous system and our own individual nervous system, but the collective nervous system. And there's such a difference in a connected collective nervous system than a disconnected. So trees are amazing. The plant world's amazing because in some ways their nervous system and ours can talk to each other. And we can breathe them in, they breathe us in. I mean, we know that from science, that actually the relationship can be very soothing, settling, healing, because it really pulls us down into Mother Earth herself, but helps us, kind of helps us not be alone, to have other kind of major resources and relationships to be able to you know, to be able to feel with. I'm looking at a tree right out my window. If I look out there, that's what I'm looking at. So I'm not just talking, it's inspiration. Yeah, it's amazing what we can actually do with trees, and humans have been so stupid. And so human superiority is alive and well, but yeah, it's a phenomenal relationship. So a lot of my work's helping people do that, helping collectives reroute together. I worked in the environment for like 40 years, and we've got to work from this connected place.
So when you help groups of people reroute together, what are the differences that you see?
Yeah, what are the differences I see? Kind of back to the nervous system. If we're in a sympathetic charge, and most groups are, we're not in our full medicine. Like I'm in, you know, the sympathetic activation, if you like, the fight and flight, means I'm actually in my trauma zone. And you know, often trauma leads the way. Now, we need to kind of be able to heal and love trauma, but never follow it. So if we can, and people talk about grounding all the time, but they don't know how to do it. But if we can learn to ground, if we can learn to sow ourselves and our collectives back into the web of life, and it's simple because it's natural, then everyone comes back into kind of the ventral vagal, and that's when everyone's medicine gets turned on. And we need everyone's medicine and the medicine of all cultures to be turned on, but not from that fight flight place, but from that connected whole, kind of more spontaneous, more flow. And to me, that's when the future solutions arrive. We're not chasing them.
Yeah,
it's totally different experience. So I see relief, I see relaxation, I see a lot of love, and then I see inspiration happen in you know, in the non-competitive future landing now way. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I guess, you know, part of what you're talking about there is it creates safety and co-creativity, which is funny. I was talking to a friend about it, that very thing this morning. Yeah. So what is it that attracted you to the World Upshift movement, and how do you think your the work that you do is contributing to what's needed in the world?
Yeah, big question, the second one. I think I love the World Upshift movement in that it's not prescriptive. Hey, and it's trying to, in some ways, do what I said, just unleash and harness medicine. So not go, we've got the medicine and here's how it's got to be.
Yeah.
I love the head, hands, heart. And I think we really need integrated, we're not going to think our way out of this alone. So how do we do that? So those are the two things that I enjoy, this more emergent approach, which I really love, working with emergence, because it's part of connection and safety, is then we get to spontaneously emerge the future, not plan. Yeah. How does do I think my work contributes, or how does it? You know, some years ago, Mother Earth herself, we say Papatuanuku, said to me in a meditation, nothing for me without me. Nothing for me without me, Louise. Now, we kind of know that. I work a lot with Indigenous people, and we know that about people, but we don't still know that yet about the earth. That she has her own view, if you like, and flow and rhythm. So for me, you know, so vital that whatever solutions we come up with are in that flow and rhythm. not pushing against or forcing, and then we've got her with us, and that huge flow rhythm with us. I know it can sound a bit esoteric, but it's actually highly practical. When I'm in that connected place, things take me 1/10 of the time than if I'm in my trying, striving, forcing. So for me, that's so much part of my, I guess, purpose and work, is helping people really connect into, thread themselves back into this web, thread collectives, build the safety and love for the emergent flow to lead our way forward. Yeah, and to me then trauma isn't leading the show, but the actual web of life is unfolding itself in the way it wants. And we're part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, for people who may never have heard of or experienced the kind of nervous system unwinding that you're talking about, the connection to planet, you know, like I'm aware in my own work that I'm often in circles where that sounds very woo-woo to some people, that it, you know, or that it's just completely alien as a conceptually, and they don't necessarily have anywhere that they can put that in themselves. How do you think, like, what do you think's needed for more people to be able to access that kind of work when it's not part of their daily reality?
Yeah. So, you know, one of the other reasons I kind of wanted to be part of the World Upshift movement is because I've also started this as a movement, but I don't want to start it as a separate movement. I want to join other movements. So I started the Reroute movement, and, you know, published my first book last year, and I've got kind of self-paced programs and things like that. But basically, it's like there's like 50 processes that anyone can do that really, you know, that are very practical of how to go about doing this. And I led an international climate trauma lab, and so many people wanted to connect to nature but didn't know how. So it's a how-to process. And in this movement, I also say the most radical act everyone can do for the planet is to reroute themselves and to form this cross species, if you like. I call it, you know, a relationship with a tree. And then we form this sort of global human tree forest, which is a more than human container for solutions. If we're just going to form human containers for solutions for the earth, I think we'll be in the same place. So, you know, it's a very practical. I work with leaders, you know, all over the world, and to work with me now, you've got to actually do this process. And it's amazing how many of them do.
Yeah.
And because we are planet, like our bodies are planet, it doesn't take long for them to go, wow, I actually can feel that.
Yeah.
Oh, I can sense that over there. You know, it's quite remarkable, actually, what people can experience, because that is our DNA. That is we're not even necessarily, we are walking planet. We are part of Mother Earth. So, you know, I go into pretty mainstream places, and it's quite remarkable how much this is given a go and worked with.
That's super heartening to hear. And I love what you said about like multi-species solutions making.
Yeah.
Because it's so true that we're not, I don't know what that quote is about, you know, we can't really solve the problem with the mindset that created it.
Right.
Work. So yeah, awesome. So
sorry, Paulina, go.
Well, I was going to ask you if you had anything else that you would like to share.
I think it is a radical act in this time to refuse the wiring of separation. You know, I think we can all make that choice that actually we're not going to believe that anymore, and we're going to get ourselves rerouted, reconnected into the web of life. To me, that would be a phenomenal thing if we could get millions of people to do that. And it's not saying that the head and the, you know, the hands don't come into it, but I think it would come into it in such a more flow, you know, flow states are the most productive, emergent way. So yeah, I think that's my challenge to everyone.
I love that. I had this very deep conversation with a friend this morning, and we were talking about impact, as in our impact on each other, and about, you know, like recent interactions with people who sort of are refusing to agree that we have an impact on each other, you know, that we're all responsible for our own feelings, and that, you know, if somebody responds to you in a certain way, that's because that's their issue, and that we're not impacting each other. But in the same way that we're having this impact on the planet, and we can do that both ways, positive or negative, like we're wired biologically to be social creatures, and to be, you know, do have an impact. And I think it's really beautiful that your work kind of takes us even beyond the humans into how we can be in a different relationship with the earth and other species.
Yeah. And that impacts our relationship with each other. And I agree with you about impact. I really agree. Too many people think intent is enough, but they don't follow through to the impact. And yeah,
and we're all impacting each other and everything else all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, thank you so much, Louise,
for
agreeing to speak to me and for sharing about your amazing work. And I'm guessing we can put a link somewhere wherever this is shown, this interview. And hopefully speak to you again.
Thank you very much. Yeah, look forward to it.
Wow, what another wonderful segment, full of wisdom, experience. There's so much that we can take away from this, everything that we're hearing today.
Yeah, we're having behind the scenes conversations about the wisdom of trees and ancients and all kinds of beautiful stuff. So inspiring. We're going to have a break now, aren't we? But before we do that,
we are, but you know, if you were with us last night, you heard Roger talk a little bit about the hummingbird appeal. And it was really an invitation to all of us to be introspective, to look inside, to see what it is we're made of and who it is we're becoming, and how that might be able to translate to our contribution and connection to our local communities, our global community, everything and everyone around us, really. And the World Upshift movement, the World Upshift Organization, is extending an invitation to everyone to be involved, to show up and be a part of this beautiful time, this emergence of humanity as we are becoming the new. And we want to do that together. So you can be a part, you can join us and be a part of this movement. We're also facilitating conversations, engaging conversations. So just like these that you've heard today in this program that you'll hear later today, if you're staying tuned in with us, we're going to have opportunities for you to be at the table in these conversations, contribute your thoughts, ask your questions, even work through maybe the possibilities of what's showing up for you and how you want to come forward and be a part of this in the world.
Yeah, and you can do that by going to the worldupshiftmovement.org. You can also go to the Unify Facebook page and leave comments and let us connect with you there. If you want to ask any questions, you know, you can do that. There's loads of ways of interacting with us.
There is.
And if you wanted to donate, I mean, you know, whatever amount you feel you'd like to contribute, please do, because that will also help us to be able to spread the word more and get more people involved and bring on board more partners. So Thank you for tuning in to us this morning.
Yeah, worldupshift.org. And we will drop that link in the chat as well, so you can reference that and just click it right there. And we'll see you later today.
Yeah.